We are here for a workshop on the civil services. Miss Vandana Raj is an officer of the Indian Revenue Service, Customs and Central Exercise. She did her computer science engineering from the prestigious College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University. Having worked as the editor of her college magazine, Guindy Times, she always had a keen interest in socially relevant issues. With civil services as her dream, she refused to take up placements at her college. Further, Ms. Vandana has the rare distinction of having cleared the exam successfully for 4 consecutive times. She secured All India rank 295 in 2015. She has a keen interest in issues concerning the Indian education sector. She has been awarded by the prestigious Howard University for the Best Policy Proposal Award on Primary Education in India. She is a trained classical singer and with vivid interest in tennis too. We welcome you, ma'am, and I would like to invite Suman sir to please give her a bouquet.
A very good morning to all of you. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time out of your schedule of classes and to be able to make it here. I always say that well begun is half done, and I also hope that a lot of you are looking at civil services as a career option, or a lot of you are considering civil services as a career option, and this is probably the start for that. One of the reasons why we have been conducting these workshops all across the country is to provide a perspective to working professionals, to students across the country as to how they could explore a career in civil services. My name is Jatin Gupta, and I represent an institute called as Vision IRS. We are a premier institute for civil service examination based out of Delhi, and I am heading outreach for Vision IRS. So, and also I would like to thank the college administration and Shifa ma'am for providing us this opportunity to interact with you guys here, and also to Vandana to be able to take time out of a busy schedule. She's currently with the Central and Excise Department, and therefore it's difficult for her to be able to find time out of her schedule and to be able to make it here to interact with you people. So I'll just keep my bit short, and I would just try and give you a perspective on the kind of things which can be done while you are in civil services. What are the kind of opportunities, what are the kind of possibilities which civil services provide you as a career option? What is the kind of work which can be done? What are the nitty-gritties of some of the things which have been done by some of the officers in the country? And I would also take you briefly through the pattern of the examination, and then I would hand it over to Vandana to share her experience of or the journey through which she has been over last few years while preparing for the examination, and what it has been like her for in the civil services. So just to begin with, are all of you BBA students? How many of you are in the first year? Okay. How many of you are in the second year? It's a 3-year course? Okay. And okay. And how many of you are in the third year? I know that's okay. Quite a lot of you are in the third year. Right. Have any one of you ever interacted with a civil servant, someone close to you in your family, relatives, friends? Has anyone done that before? You have? Can you share a bit about what you think about the civil services, what your perception is of what a civil servant does?
So it's like a prestigious to have a civil servant in the family.
Okay.
As my elder brother, among the 5, all the 5 are civil servant only.
Okay.
3 are IRS officers and 2 are IPS officers.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a proud also in one way that in family we are having decent civil service. And of course, it should have to track the examination. As I saw, they need a vast knowledge and all this. They need to be perfect in all areas.
Okay. So fine, we'll come to the examination bit in a time, and I just wanted to take you through a couple of case studies. So these are two officers which I've seen from close angles myself, of the kind of work which has been done by them, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. As I always say, that there are numerous and thousands of officers in India, civil servants, those who are doing their work silently, those who are doing a brilliant job of bringing a change into the society, and they are doing it in a manner which a lot of us don't even come to know about. So I am sort of going to elaborate upon two of these case studies in terms of how uh, a career in civil services looks like. So these are some of the images which you could see, which are from Chhattisgarh. And the first image on your left on the top, which you see, is from an attack which took place in Chhattisgarh in Dantewada in 2010. So more than 70 soldiers of CRPF lost their life because of a Naxal attack. There was an ambush which had been placed, and more than 70 of them lost their lives to Naxalites. And the second image is the kind of damage which is done by the Naxalites when they are operating in these areas. They blow up the schools, they blow up the roads, they blow up the hospitals and a lot of other things. All the government infrastructure which is there in place, because one of the things in fact they target foremost is the educational institutions, because they feel that it'll be easy for them to indoctrinate the people, those who are residing in these areas, especially Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, whichever are the areas which are infested by the presence of Naxalites. It will be easy for them to indoctrinate these people, sort of be able to mislead these people into certain things if they don't have education, if they are not aware, if they are not empowered properly. And then these are some of the images or clippings from the newspapers and from the TV channels, and the kind of damage which keeps happening every now and then. In fact, very recently, I think probably 2.5 months back, there was again a very unfortunate attack which took place on the soldiers of CRPF in Sukma district of Chhattisgarh, where again a large number of our CRPF soldiers lost their lives. So these are the kind of circumstances in which a civil servant has to work in at times, and these are really challenging circumstances. No doubt, it seems to be really intimidating in first go. Someone might just think that okay, no one would want to be here in the first place, let alone running administration and running the government in these areas. But we always keep blaming the government. We always keep saying that the government is not doing anything. We always keep blaming the politicians, the bureaucrats, and we believe that there is not much which is being done by them. But there are certain bright spots which are there in the services which I want to tell you about. That there are people, those who are doing their work silently, they are doing some really good job, and there is a huge amount of opportunity which civil services provide you with to work in such conditions and to be able to make impact. So this story is of an officer who goes by the name of Mr. O.P. Chaudhary. He is an IRS officer of 2005 batch, Chhattisgarh cadre. And for his work as the district collector of Dantewada and Sukma, he was awarded the Prime Minister's Award for excellence in public administration in 2013. So he has done some really wonderful work in districts of Dantewada, in districts of Sukma, which are heavily Naxal infested, the kind of condition which I showed you. How many of you have heard about or read about the Maslow's hierarchy needs? Some of you have, right? So as Maslow would say that the first need for any particular person would be physiological needs, and the second one would be safety needs, right? So therefore, in such circumstances, when the safety of the person is not being ensured, even a civil servant is not really safe out here. It's not to say that civil servants are getting killed, but at the same time the situation is not really safe also, so to say. And in such circumstances, to be able to do the kind of work which I'm going to talk about is what would amaze you, is the kind of possibility which civil services provide you with. So this is one of the projects which was launched by the district collector of Dantewada, Mr. O.P. Chaudhary, which went by the name of Chulo Asman. So Chulo Asman was a project which was supposed to provide coaching, and which was supposed to provide guidance to students, those who are in class 11th and 12th in these backward districts of Dantewada, Sukma, so that these kids too can prepare for some of the toughest competitive examinations in the country, including the IIT JEEs and the medical entrance examination and a number of other competitive examinations. Because it's very difficult for each and everyone to go to a big center such as Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, Chandigarh, Mumbai, etc. to get some of the best coaching and guidance in the country. So what Mr. O.P. Chaudhary did was that he got some of the best teachers and faculty from institutes in the country, especially Kota, so as to run this program by the name of Chulo Asman. And as a result of it, now the numbers have shot up significantly of the number of kids, those who have been able to make it to some of the prestigious colleges of the country, simply because of one move which was made by district administration. And so this is the kind of work which you can do if you have the will, if you have the right kind of intentions to be able to work in the services, then you can impact the lowest strata of the society and be able to bring a change in their lives significantly. Imagine the kind of satisfaction which one would get when a student who would have been benefited out of this kind of a program would walk up to someone like Mr. O.P. Chaudhary or whoever the officer would be who would have been responsible for implementation of this program, and would pay gratitude and thank him or her for the kind of work which has been done, and because of which how that particular student got benefited. So there is an immense satisfaction, there is an immense amount of uh, pride which one takes place in the kind of work which is associated with the civil services. Another part or another component of Chulo Asman was also to provide skill-based training to the youth in Chhattisgarh, and that was to provide training to the youth in areas of stitching, weaving, threading, mobile repair, electrical wiring, etc., so that they could then go and find some kind of job for themselves. Now, I also talked about that how for the Naxalites, one of the first point of attacks is educational institutions, especially the schools and the colleges. Now, this was a big challenge which was being faced by the district administration, and the district administration realized that if they keep building up these college buildings or school buildings, and if they are blowed up consistently by the Naxalites or by people those who are against the state machinery, then it takes a lot of time to rebuild the entire infrastructure. It takes a lot of cost also. So he came up with this innovative idea that instead of running schools out of the concrete brick and mortar building, we will be running it in pota cabins. So these are pota cabins. These are temporary structures which are made of steel and aluminium, and they can be placed anywhere, and they don't cost a lot, and to install them also doesn't take a lot of time. So they started running classes in such pota cabins, and then they also started running classes in mobile vans. They hired a few vans, they bought a few vans with the help of CSR initiatives, with the help of money which the district administration had, and the MP lads funds and all of those things, and then they were able to provide education to these kids. So again, circumstances are tough, but civil services provide you with that kind of an opportunity to be able to make the right kind of impact if you have the will to implement the innovative ideas, right? So there is a lot of scope for innovation. No doubt you have to be within the four boundaries of the system, but the system does allow you a bit of maneuverability to move around here and there so as to implement your own ideas as well. And civil servants have that much amount of authority and power to be able to do those things. We hear a lot of things such as that there is a lot of political interference, there is a lot of red tapeism. Yes, definitely that is there, but if a person has the will, things can be done in the right way. So this is story of Mr. O.P. Chaudhary. Now I'll take you through another example. So a few weeks back, how many of you have ever been to Himachal Pradesh? Okay, couple of you. Have any one of you ever experienced floods anywhere? How many of you have sort of seen floods? Maybe in Bangalore also, I don't know. The way situation is in Bangalore. Okay. So I happened to visit a place called Nalagarh, which is a subdivision which is almost 40 kilometers from Chandigarh on the border of Himachal Pradesh and Punjab. And one of my friends is posted as SDM, a subdivisional magistrate there. And when I happened to visit Himachal Pradesh a few weeks back, these were the kind of images which I saw. There was heavy rainfall which had occurred in the area, and there was a lot of breaking up of the bridges and blowing up of the infrastructure, and a lot of roads had been washed away, and there was heavy flooding which had taken place in the state because of heavy rainfall. Now, again, these are the kind of circumstances in which a civil servant has to work. So if I take you through the itinerary, I spent 3 days with my friend. His name is Mr. Ashutosh Garg. He's ranked 54 in 2013 civil service examination, an IS officer, batch of cadre of Himachal Pradesh. And I happened to spend 3 days with him, sort of trying to understand the kind of work which he's doing and all of those things. And so I reached Nalagarh probably sometime on Sunday night, and Monday morning I remember that he got a call at like 7 o'clock. We were having tea, and he got a call at 7 o'clock. He's supposed to report to the office at around 9:30. He got a call at 7 o'clock that there is a because of the heavy flooding and rains which have happened in the area, there is a bridge which has collapsed in one of the villages. So this was the bridge which had collapsed. If you can see, you can't see the flow of the river as such. There was a small stream which was there. By the time we had reached, the flow of the river was relatively less, but the entire bridge had been washed away. And people on both the sides of the village, especially people on this side of the village, were stranded because they were not able to make a move towards this side. And the route for them to be able to reach the hospitals or any of the important emergency services was really long if they couldn't access this bridge. Right, so basically all the basic amenity and the services in this particular village had been disrupted. Now the challenge which the district administration faced was, so he got a call 7 o'clock in the morning, remember, right? So first thing in the morning, 7:30, we were at the venue. I went with him and we saw that this is what is the damage which has been done. Now the problem which was there in front of the district administration was that they wanted to reconstruct that bridge. Now see, this bridge cannot be reconstructed till the time you do not stop the flow of the water, right? You can't put the foundation and build it upwards. So therefore that means that you will need to divert the water. You will need to divert the water either towards that side or towards this side. And in this situation there was a classic dilemma which the SDM faced. He was surrounded by people from all the sides, and this is SDM listening to grievances of people from both the sides, where one of people, those who were on one side of the village or one side of the bridge, that is on this particular side, was saying that we won't allow you to divert water through our fields or through our land because that would damage our crops, that would damage whatever fields that we have put. And people on this side as well were not very keen to do that, right? So the district administration in such a circumstance had to listen to the arguments and grievances on both the sides, assuage or sort of assure people that the best possible decision would be taken, which would be in interest of both the villages and which would also help resolve the issue as quickly as possible, because this is something which has to be restored as soon as possible. And so these are the kind of circumstances in which you need to work. These are the kind of challenges which are thrown at you on a daily basis. If you are someone who is a people's person who likes interacting with people, if you are someone who likes taking up challenges on a daily basis, who likes that such challenges are thrown up to you each and every day, then civil service is the career for you. In fact, when I take you through the entire day through which he had, and this is just one day, I realized at the end of the day, I was asking him that you do not have one dull moment in the day. And he said that no, I mean, no one day for me seems like the other day. It's not a monotonous job because one moment I'm doing something and the other moment I'm doing something, and the third moment there is something completely different which I have to deal with, right? So after this visit, the second thing that we had to do was that there was this you probably wouldn't be able to see it very clearly, but there was this land which was there till that tree line where you can see the arrow, which belonged to the government. And this land had been illegally occupied by farmers and the villagers for some time. So the challenge in front of district administration was to first of all evict people, those who had illegally occupied this government land. And the second was that they should be able to protect this land again from being illegally encroached upon. Now, the SDM remembered that some time back he had been approached by Punjab National Bank. They wanted to invest certain money in plantation activity as a part of CSR in this area. So he instantly remembered that okay, so once we have evicted these people, what's the way to sort of ensure that illegal occupation doesn't take place again? So what he did was that he called up the manager from PNB and he said that why don't you come over and I'll show you a place where we want you to plant trees all around so as to fence this particular land, and so that it can then not be encroached illegally by people again, right? So that there is a clear demarcation that what land belongs to the government and what land belongs to the village people. So again, that involved interacting with the villagers early in the morning at 9 o'clock, 9:30, and then again they had grievances. Everyone has different ideas. People see, everyone in India thinks that they are no less than the Prime Minister. Everyone has views and opinions on each and everything, right from cricket to politics to movies to everything, right? So everyone has their opinion. Everyone thinks that they know better than the administration themselves. And therefore, again, in such circumstances, one has to listen to grievances, then one has to sort of take a decision. It's a high pressure situation, right? Because one wrong step, one wrong decision which you take can cost a few lives or can cost you your career. So it's a pressure cooker kind of situation. But it's, if you like taking up those challenges, if you like working in those kind of circumstances, then civil service is the career for you. Now, so this is, till 10, 11 o'clock he had this duty. Suddenly, next thing, I don't have images for that, but the next thing in the day was that there was supposed to be a 15th August parade, which was, or program which was supposed to take place in the region. And the district collector was coming as a chief guest. So it was sort of a responsibility for the SDM to see that all the arrangements, etc., are in place. I think this was around 7th of August. And so we went and we had to sort of sit through the performances of the kids, those who were rehearsing and all of those things, and suggest to the schools that what could be changed and all of those things. So that was one thing. The next, when we were going back for lunch at around 1 o'clock, we realized that there was a courtesy call which came up that some school kids have come from some school in UP, and they want to get a picture clicked with you somewhere in front of your office. So please oblige. Now, this is not a part of the duty of an IS officer as such. He's not supposed to necessarily do it. He can refuse it as well. But then, as an obligation, because people do visit you every day, entire day with their grievances and everything, it's important to make people feel that you are there for them in whichever way. And if someone especially come all the way from UP to Himachal Pradesh just to get a picture clicked with you, you probably might oblige, right? Then the next thing, he gets a call from the CM's office that the CM is going to pass through your subdivision and there is going to be a protocol duty. You need to be present to escort the chief minister, right? So these are the kind of things which keep coming up. Like, there are, you don't have a set plan through the day. It's not like you go to the office at 9 o'clock and then you're like, okay, this is going to be my agenda for the day. He in fact told me that most of the times I'm never able to fulfill the agenda which I have on the entire day. So now this is another thing. So this story comes up, probably, this work comes up sometime around 5 o'clock in the evening. So I'm taking you sometime back in the past, probably, maybe 7-8 months back. And this I don't think you can see a pond also. So it mentions that there is a 300-year-old pond which was there in Nalagarh. You definitely can't locate the pond, but I think you can see those buildings at the back, right? So just keep in mind about those buildings, and I'll show you that how this pond was revamped on the behest of district administration. So the SDM realized that if we have to revamp this pond, we don't have enough money under district administration to be able to revamp this entire place. So where do we get the money from? He approached companies within the region so as to invest money through the CSR initiative, and so that this pond can be revamped and could be made a place where people could come and relax in the mornings or in the evenings, and sort of it could be a good place to just have a morning walk or just have a quiet evening and all of those things. It could serve as a tourist attraction also. It's a very small place. Nalagarh is a very, very, very small place. So now the work on this particular thing started. Again, these are images not from my recent visit, but from probably 6 months back or 6-7 months back. The work started. You can still see the buildings on the back, as you can, those buildings still remain to be the reference point. And then suddenly the pond started to take shape. So this is how the pond started to look like in a few weeks. This was the last time when I had visited this place, around the month of April, or March, April. So this is how it looked like around the month of March, April. So you could at least start seeing the pond, right? So the pond started to come up. And now the next image which I'm going to show you is sort of the kind of impact which can be made when you are in civil service, the kind of power, the kind of responsibility, the kind of authority which you have to bring about a change. So he decided that we are actually going to make this a tourist attraction. We are going to have a certain light and sound show, and we are going to set up a cafeteria, and we are going to build a garden around this pond and all of that. And the next this is how the pond looks like today. Okay, so this is how it looks as of now, and you probably go there in the evening. So they have boating during the afternoon or evening. They have lights and sound shows which takes place during the evening, and then there is a whole lot of gardening which has been done on the the edges of the pond. So this is what you can do. This is the kind of impact which you can see in front of your eyes of your dream translating into something tangible when you are in civil services. And I have just given you like very few examples. I have just given you example of how someone did work in education, how someone worked in the field of tourism, for example, something like this, or maybe something like environment, ecology. So whichever idea you are really passionate about, whether it is health, whether it is education, whether it is skill development, whether it is empowerment of women, whether it is law and order, whether it is finances, revenue, tax collection, whatever it is, civil services give you that kind of opportunity to be able to do this kind of work, right? So this is just I wanted to sort of open you up to the kind of possibilities of work. And again, as I said in the beginning also, this is just tip of the iceberg. This is just story of two officers whom you probably won't even have heard about, right? There are thousands and thousands of them, those who are doing such wonderful, awe-inspiring work all across the country. Now, I think you already know about these people. Again, all of them are a product of civil services. When we talk about Mr. Vinod Rai, who was a former CAG responsible for exposing the CWG and 2G scam, Dr. D. Subbarao, former RBI Governor of India. We also know about Dr. Kiran Bedi, who is the first lady IPS officer from India and presently serving as Lieutenant Governor in Puducherry. Mr. Jagdish Khattar, who was responsible for revamping Maruti. So he was one person who was responsible for what Maruti stands for today. Maruti wasn't always this profitable or profit-making company as we see it today, or as we have seen it for last few decades in India. So what UPSC is looking for, and what is the pattern like? So I'll just talk about some of these important things which UPSC is looking for. I'll start from the bottom. That is sense of purpose. You need to have the right kind of purpose in your mind. Need to have the right kind of objective in your mind to be able to do work in civil services. And not only that, even to get selected. I'll tell you why, because one day I'm going to elaborate more on that. But it's such a long cycle of preparing for the examination. It takes 1.5 years at least. And if you do not have the right kind of motivation to appear in this examination, then probably it would be difficult for you to keep yourself motivated all throughout. It's like a marathon, right? You do get disenchanted, you do get demotivated a lot of times during this exam, when you are in the services also. And if your motivation is not in the right place, if your motivation is probably to earn a lot of money, or is to let's say move around in a Lal Batti car or whatever, then you might just want to reconsider civil services as a career option, because they're just superficial things. They might just excite you for a bit, for some time, but not always, right? This is not to say that civil servants don't earn money. They definitely earn good money, and by all legal means, right? Yeah. So by all legal means, and after 6th and 7th pay commission, salaries are good. Salaries are at par with I won't say completely at par with the private sector, but they are good. They are good enough to lead a comfortable life. Plus, you get a lot of perks and privileges also, and most importantly, you get satisfaction of being able to do something for the people around you. And yes, there is pride which is involved. It's a prestigious job. It's a stable career option, right? It's a career option where you can say that you unlike the private sector, where people might just be laid off any day. Civil service is not like that. It gives you some security in your career also, and a lot of other things. Apart from that, UPSC is also looking for people who are rational and objective. So I showed you the kind of conditions in which one has to make decisions. So if you're not rational, if you're not objective, if you are having some preconceived notions about problems or about people or about certain things, then it will be difficult for you to be able to work. And therefore, UPSC is also looking for people, those who are able to take decisions on basis of facts and figures and not merely their own opinions. They are also looking for people those who can work hard. That's, I think, one of the most important qualities which they judge through the examination only, because 90% of the examination is when I run you through the pattern of the examination, there are 9 papers which you have to write in the mains examination. It's a 3-stage process, and it's an arduous process. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of hard work to prepare for the examination, and all of those things. And then we are obviously looking for people those who are empathetic, right? If you cannot relate to person who's walking on the street or who comes to your office with his or her problem, which might concern his or her life, then again, this is not something which UPSC wants. They want that people should be able to understand and relate and put themselves into shoes of the other people so as to understand what the problems which they are facing. And honesty and integrity, yes, perhaps the most important quality which is looked for in a civil servant. Now I'll just briefly run you through the pattern of the examination before I hand it over to Vandana. So the pattern of the examination is that it's a 3-stage process, and the 3-stage process is basically preliminary examination, the mains examination, and the interview. UPSC releases notification for the examination somewhere around February, March every year, and then you can fill the form online, and the preliminary examination happens sometime around the month of June. Almost 6 to 7 lakh people appear in the preliminary examination every year. There is a lot of competition, yes, so because of the population numbers that we have, right? So 6 to 7 lakh people appear in this, and plus because of the kind of aspirational services which civil services are. So 6 to 7 lakh people appear in the preliminary examination, and there are 2 papers which are there. The paper 1 is called as GS1, and paper 2 is called as GS2. GS2 paper is aptitude paper, something which you all would be aware of. There will be some very basic simple mathematic problem solving questions, and then there will be questions on reading comprehension, etc. And on the first paper is general studies paper, where the syllabus looks something like this. You have topics from history, Indian world geography, Indian constitution, economics, science and technology, and some current affairs and international relations and all of those things. Again, the reason why this paper is called as general studies is that you don't need to have specific knowledge of each and every of these subjects. You don't need to be a master's in these subjects, or even a bachelor's for that matter. If you understand the basics properly, which is understood by a class 10th 11th student, then you would be able to sail through this, right? Obviously it requires a bit of preparation, and it requires effort and channelized effort and dedicated efforts towards clearing this examination. Paper 1 is 2 hours and is 200 marks, and paper 2 is also 2 hours and 200 marks. Now paper 2 is merely qualifying in nature, and you just need to secure 33% marks in paper 2 so as to be able to qualify for the next stage. In paper 1, whatever your scores are, on the basis of that there is a list which is prepared. Around 13 to 18,000 students approximately, or candidates, are selected every year to write the next stage of the examination, which is mains examination. Preliminary examination is objective examination. There are 100 questions in paper 1, 80 questions in paper 2, and 100 questions, each question carries 2 marks, and in paper 2 each question carries 2.5 marks. You get penalized by 1 by 3 marks for wrong response or input which you provide, right? And yeah, so there is a fair amount of filter which UPSC puts during the preliminary examination. The reason is because even they can't help it. If there are so many people, those who are appearing in the examination, they need to eliminate the number and bring it down to a sizable number, so that then they can evaluate people on their real analytical skills through mains examination. Mains examination happens every year sometime around the month of October, and it comprises of 9 papers held over a week. There are 2 papers which are conducted in a day, 3 hours each one of them carrying 250 marks. In fact, if I have to show you the kind of questions which come in the preliminary examination, if you can see the question on your top left, this one is about Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, right? So this is just a sample. This is a relatively simple question, but what I just want to give you a perspective of is that this is not something which requires a lot of it doesn't require a lot of in-depth knowledge of a certain thing. Yes, you need to have a good understanding of things, but you don't need to read through entire scheme document of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana or something like that. If you have a bit of understanding, if you have a general understanding of issues, if you read newspapers properly, if you read some of the prescribed books properly, this examination is not very difficult to crack. Examination has 9 papers, as I said. 4 papers are general studies, which are largely the syllabus of prelims only, expanded syllabus of prelims. And then you have 2 papers, 1 essay, that is 5, 2 language papers. One is English and the other one is any of the regional languages, 18 languages, whichever you want to choose, whether it is Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, Malayalam, whatever it is, you can choose that particular language. And they are just qualifying papers, 2 of the language papers. And the 7 papers, each one of them carries 250 marks. Whatever score you get, on the basis of that, there is a list which is prepared, and some selected candidates, that is around 3 to 4,000, are called for the last stage of the entire process, which is the interview stage, which is a personal interview or a personality test, as UPSC calls it, which happens in Delhi. And as far as the other 2 papers, so I told you about 5. The other 2 papers, which are, I in fact told you about 7, the other 2 papers are optional papers. So you can choose any of the optional subjects, ranging from humanities to commerce, sciences, engineering, cognitive sciences, psychology, philosophy. So whatever you want to choose, and irrespective of whatever your graduation is in. A lot of students also ask us that, can we take subject which is different from our graduation? You definitely can, and people do succeed also. In fact, Vanna also is going to talk a bit about that, and she herself, being an engineering graduate, chose to write the examination with public administration as her optional. So now there are 2 papers for the optional subject as well. So paper 1 and paper 2. So this is the entire scheme of the examination. Interview carries 275 marks. Okay, so this is this sounds like a bit intimidating. This, especially if if any one of you would not have been really acquainted with this entire process. But again, just to say, and I think Vanna would be able to dispel myths on that. But this examination is all about the right kind of effort and dedication, and putting in having the right kind of guidance and direction to your preparation. If you have that, if you have the will to make it, if you have the conviction, and if you're ready to work hard, then it's not a very tough examination to crack, right? It's something which requires dedicated effort, no doubt, but the kind of opportunity which you get, the kind of career which you are able to make in civil services once you crack this examination is also tremendous. So I would just like to sort of finish with this one quote, which is, the way to get started is quit talking and start doing. So I've done a lot of talking. I think you also would have probably been thinking of giving this examination, appearing this examination. But the way this entire thing has to work out is that you need to sort of put it in your mind that yes, if you take a decision, first take a firm decision. And I think the most important thing which should guide your decision whether you should appear for civil services or not is that whether you want to do this kind of work which I just showed you. And plus, I just talked about IAS. You have services IPS, IRS, customs, excise, income tax, revenue, railway traffic services, and a number of other services also, which some of them are specialized services. Some of them have there also the kind of work and the kind of impact which you can make is enormous. And probably Vanna could share a bit about the kind of work which she is doing in customs and excise, and the kind of things which they have been learning and which they have been doing. So, and how does that impact you? How does GST impact you, or any of the indirect taxes impact you, and all of those things. So thank you very much. My name is Jatin. My email ID is jatin.g@visionis.in. In case you have any queries, you could always send a mail to me. Please mention in subject that you are from CMS Bangalore. I would be more than happy to deal with any of the queries. I teach Indian polity, geography, and security at Vision IS. Right? Thank you so much again for listening very patiently. And now I would like to call upon Vandana to interact with you people. Thank you.
Hi. So, thank you, Jatin. That was a very, very exhaustive presentation. It almost covered every detail of the exam, and also the most important thing, the motivation that is required for the exam. His case studies were brilliant. They were live case studies that you get to see, which you just read in the newspapers. So he had a very detailed explanation about it. So based on Jatin's presentation, how many of you are thinking of civil services as a career now? Good job, Jatin. Okay, good one. So now that most of you are interested in it, so let me just go a little in detail about this entire process. So how I would like to go about it now is that let me just answer 5 questions about this process. First is what, second is why, third is when, fourth is how, and fifth is where. Okay, this is how I plan to go about this entire presentation. So first, what is civil services as such? And during this process, I'll also explain my own personal experience with this exam. So how I went about these 5 questions in my life and my journey. So what is civil services? Basically, it's an exam that is conducted by Union Public Service Commission, and it selects for different services. It's a common exam for various services like IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, IRTS, postal services, corporate law services. So there are a host of services for the same. And so depending on your own interest, you can choose your preferences and your background also. Like if you have a finance background, maybe revenue service would be good. If you have an inclination towards generalist administration, then IAS would be good. If you are very interested in police, then policing and enforcement and all that, police services. And if you are interested in diplomacy, international relations and all that, foreign services would be good. So based on your own personal choices and also the rank that you get, you can choose one of the services there. So this is about what. And secondly, most importantly, about why. And another thing, I do not have a PPT as such. Having been in the training for like some time, I think PPTs are slow death. So I didn't want to gruel you with that punishment. So I'll just go about. And anytime you want to interrupt me, you can interrupt me. And so the second part was why. So why civil services? To share my own experience, why I chose civil services was the sheer diversity of the work. The immense satisfaction that you derive from the work. So, as Jatin mentioned, the salary after 7th pay commission is good enough, and so money should not be a problem. And if money is your motivation to get into civil services, then there are 1,000 other things that you can do to earn money. So that should not be your motivation. And secondly, if power is your motivation to come to civil services, this is probably not the right time to do that. Maybe you should have been in the British time where you would have been given the royal treatment of the lords and all that. Or like now then the basic symbol of power that bureaucracy had was the red beacon, and you don't see any red beacons anymore. So this is a shift towards where we're going towards a citizen-centric administration, where we essentially mean the citizen is the king, and you are a facilitator. You are basically someone who's going to help get things done easily and more efficiently. So what administration expects from you is efficiency, empathy, and integrity. If these 3 are things that you have, and if you have a basic sense of purpose, a sense of meaning that you want to have in your life, and also to have a change in people's lives, then this is probably a good thing that you could try. And so my background was my mother was in the government of Tamil Nadu. So she was a very dedicated employee, and so her satisfaction and the recognition that she got was really an inspiration for me. And about how, when she was, a very simple task, when she was able to get it done, the level of happiness or the level of satisfaction that she could give to the society, to the community, was really inspiring for me. So that was the start. And apart from that, I worked in Guindy Times, a college magazine. So we used to cover a lot of issues in and around our area, like within the college, outside the college. We were able to come across a lot of social issues that demanded attention, be it like women or children, or like employment, skill development, or like hygiene, cleanliness. everything had a connect with people, and there was a lot of things that could be done. So this was also another thing that helped me channelize my ideas towards the social or the development sector. And so this was like my motivation behind it. And as and when I started preparing for the service, the journey itself taught me a lot of things. Like as Jatin mentioned, the papers are very exhaustive. It is almost everything under the sun, be it like history, geography, economy, security, international relations, everything. You're expected to know, you were expected to be a well aware citizen. So with so much of an awareness about what is happening around you, that shapes your personality as such. You become a very well-rounded personality. So that also helped me and understand that this is a very good career prospect, and career opportunities also would be much better in the service. So this is about why. And thirdly, coming to when, like all of you are graduates now, you will have your own confusions on which profession to choose and your placements and all that. And most of you are doing your UG, right? Okay. So now you still have lots more time and so on, like whether to take up a job and then give the exam, or whether to give the exam directly, or which job to take. I mean, there are a lot of confusions at this stage, and my personal experience says that it's always better to have a job and then go for this exam. This is because I feel this exam at the end of the day is very, very unpredictable, and there is a lot of luck factor also involved in it. Despite the fact that you may be very aware, very hardworking, and all of that, it is also important that you have some amount of luck factor and also amount of smart work that this exam demands. And even apart from that, when you have a job, it gives a different level of confidence to yourself, and your perspectives, your outlook on and general things in the society changes. So my personal take would be to have a job for a year or a year and a half, and then move to civil services, because you also might be financially stable by then, because this exam does require full-time preparation without any work or some employment as such for a year or so. So that way mentally also you will be relaxed and much more confident, is my personal take. And the next question is where, like where do you go for coaching and all that. So basically this exam is all about guidance. Like if you can have like friends or anybody for that matter, or even not even if you do not have people in this line, even digital sources are very good. Like online medium is a great platform. Like there are so many websites these days, like you just type like UPSC or IRS exams, and there are a host of websites that turn up, like Vision IAS itself and Insights on India and so on. So all of these give you like very good digital resources and also digital guidance. So anywhere you can as well sit and prepare and keep yourselves updated about what is happening and how to go about this exam and so on. So online medium is a great platform now, especially. Earlier it was always like, Delhi or any other center for that matter, Chennai or Bangalore. You need to be in these hubs. Like in Bangalore, I think it's Vijayanagara. In Chennai, there's Anna Nagar. In Delhi, there is ORN, Old Rajendra Nagar. So there are a lot of hubs around different cities where you have to be there in order to prepare for this exam. But now that has been shattered. It is very good. It is good enough if you can have your resources perfectly fine, and also update yourself regularly with the online medium. So that would be a great thing to do. And about the resources as such, like every paper you can find like particular, you can stick with one resource. Like for example, if it's history, you can stick to Spectrum. If it's geography, you can stick to NCRT. I mean, there are different types of books or that you would get on any platform as such. So books first, and secondly coaching, and thirdly the level of exposure that you can get. So as such, it's not necessary that you have to go to any like place like Delhi or like any particular hub. You can as well sustain yourself through online medium, is my take. And next most important thing is how, like the strategy, the very strategy behind this exam is that it requires sustained period of motivation. that is the key in this exam. Like how motivated can you be throughout the exam is what determines your rank and all of that. Like my journey has been like I've cracked this exam 4 times, and every time I had to give myself my own targets and my own motivation. Like it's been a long journey, and the amount of patience and perseverance that this exam demands is like something else. So I used to keep myself interested in my hobbies like Carnatic music, or be it tennis, or traveling. So all these kept me really balanced and happy to face this exam continuously. Like same way, if you can have your own hobbies also side by side, it really helps in keeping you very sane, I would say. So uh, this is about the exam as such, and about my job as such in IRS customs. This is a semi-uniform job. So like you have the task of a police officer also. At the same time, you deal with white collar crimes like financial frauds and money laundering and all of that. So having your background in finance and management, I think this is a very, very interesting thing that you can think of. Be it income tax or like customs, central excise and narcotics, it's a whole new world now. Especially when in a developing country like where economy is booming, it's going to be more economic crimes from now on. So the more we try to tackle them, it's the importance of services like Indian Revenue Service would increase. And like now you also have the GST that is coming up, which is being implemented by us, the goods and services tax that all of us feel the pinch when we go to the restaurants, like 18% tax. Yeah. So, but apart from that, it's a major tax reform wherein like entire economy is getting streamlined towards a particular system, wherein evasion possibilities are reduced, and double taxation is reduced, cascading effect is reduced. So overall, as a phenomenon, GST is a breakthrough. So and at this point, when India is implementing GST to be part of this service, I feel very happy and I feel very privileged. So every person has their own subjective understanding of a service and what you want and what you expect. This service also gives me a very good work-life balance. My weekends are free. I can travel. I can I can write. I can sing. I can dance. Like I have my own things to do in my weekends, so I can plan out my life accordingly. So apart from that, the service as such has like very good importance for enforcement. I'm not sure if many of you have watched this movie called Nayagan in Tamil, wherein there is this Velu Nayakar who is the Don in Mumbai, and there is a Daya Shankar who is an IRS officer. So his entire story revolves around the fact that a customs officer can be an important person in the entire field. Like a Mumbai Don could be challenged by a custom officer, and when he was even interviewed later, when he was asked, like he said, like ever if I want to do something else, then I would want to serve as a constable for Dayashankar. So that was his level of respect for an officer, even though he was his adversary. So the service gives you a lot of opportunities to make your own mark in the field and show your own worth. So that's it from my side. Any questions? I would be happy to answer.
You have questions, so we could take them, and please feel free to shoot anything which you have with regards to preparation, civil services as well.
Yeah.
Ma'am, do you think doing IS along with masters would work? Like purely after next year or after this you are waiting for
Yes, so masters is a good option to do, and preferably if you're doing it in like correspondence is what you're asking. Yeah, that's definitely a good thing to do, like MBA as such, right? Yeah, so a master's degree would help you anytime, definitely, and it's also doesn't like, you don't feel it's a waste of time just preparing for an exam. Like, you also have a degree side by side. I have a master's in public administration. I did the same thing. So I did a correspondence course in Open University, along with my preparation. That also helped with my preparation because public administration was my subject. I had a very clear understanding of the subject during my master's also. So if management or is going to be your subject, then a master's would be very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Much as I've heard, they say there's a lot of political influence that you would require to become an officer. Is that true, or is it a myth, or on what basis can you explain that?
Okay, political interference to become an officer.
To become an officer. So even if you pass the exam, there's certain situation, or probably the reservation or certain political interference which probably won't allow you to be an officer.
No, there is no political interference to become an officer. Like, what generally people would say is like there's a lot of political interference after you become an officer. Okay, so the recruitment process as such in UPSC is absolutely apolitical. Anybody would vouch for that. It's fair, it's impartial. The reservation is existing in India in a lot of other fields, similarly in UPSC. But that has nothing to do with politics, and it's a fair game.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ma'am, so I prepared for the NDA and NA examination last year,
Mhm.
and I cleared the examination. Like, we have the proper portions for the NDA exam, we have a proper book.
Yes.
For the IAS examination or maybe for IPS examination, we don't have anything. Like, we just have to study. Like, for example, for current affairs, if they ask, like, till what time do we have to study? Like, for span of 5 years or maybe 100 years or from the starting? Like, how will you study current affairs?
Yes, so thank you for the question. So NDA exam and UPSC exam, the approach is totally different. Okay, so NDA is basically very objective, very straightforward. While in UPSC, you're expected to have a more analytical perspective of issues. So in UPSC as such, current affairs, if you deal with, it is going to be a year's current affairs, a year, or like by the time you finish the exam, it's going to be 2 years. So 2 years current affairs would be sufficient. But as in, there's nothing as current affairs. Like, if there's something that's happening now, it's been happening for 4-5 years together, and there's just a news now. For example, if GST has been there since 1990s. Yeah, so it's not going to be like, you're not expected to know what happened from then. What you're expected to know is what is GST, why is GST relevant, and why do we need GST, and how is it being implemented now. So if you have a background of issues, that is sufficient. And that is what current affairs provides you right now. So any issue, you just go to the depth of it, analyze what it has been and what it is now, and that is sufficient. Nobody expects you to know like what has been the history of the issue. Like, just what it is in depth. That's sufficient.
Like, we got this question when he showed the kalamkari painting.
Mm.
Like, I don't know anything about that kalamkari painting. I don't know how is it related to the topic and the examination.
Mm.
How to how to even know like, okay, fine, this type of question will come.
Okay, two things. First thing, how to know which type of questions are going to come, that you need to understand through the question papers. Okay, try to go through the question papers of past 20-25 years. There are like books that are available on the past question papers. You can just have a look at them. They're going to be just MCQs and so on. And secondly, you're not expected to know everything. Okay, it's a competitive examination. You just need to know like better than the person next to you. That's how much you need to have an edge. You always have to look out for how to have an edge rather than how to know everything. Okay, you're management students. You guys are taught to be smart, right? So that's exactly what the exam demands too. You do not need. Nobody knows everything. I do not know. I know kalamkari. I may not know some other kind of a print. But even the examiner may not know everything, right? So what is smart to do is to know like what is the most relevant things, what is mostly asked. That is why I asked you to go through question papers. And secondly, how to know those things. Like, how can you be smart about it? Which are the sources that are going to give you inputs on those, like offbeat or often repeated ones. So you choose your sources, your resources based on those parameters. So essentially, you got to be smart about it. I hope I answered your question.
Please feel, I mean, I think this is an opportunity which you've got and you probably might not get it again. So please feel free to shoot any questions.
Yeah, any question.
We don't have any more questions.
What would be the ideal preparation time?
Ideal preparation time, like for prelims, I think you should start 8 months before, and that way the cycle continues. So essentially, if you can start by, say, like the prelims happens in May, so the previous year, if you can start around October, September types, it should be good.
And
Yeah, sure.
is there anything like, is it advisable to not be doing anything else in the life? Like say we want to write it in June right now, but we have our final year going on right now. So you said it's better to take off after final year, just have 1 year break and study for it.
Yeah, that would be a better thing to do, because it's not possible to balance both, especially in your first attempt. Okay, after that it's pretty okay. You have an idea, you have an hang of the exam. But when your first attempt, it's always better to take a year, like sit through it fully, have a clear idea, understanding, frame your own strategy, talk to people, find your own resources, and then go for it. If your first exam itself you're going to be like half here, half there, then it wastes your time. You're neither here, you're neither, I mean, it takes you more time for you to crack this exam, and at the same time you're not doing anything else either. So it's better to take a year off, give it a full-fledged shot, and then go for it. UPSC, because everything else is similar. Like everyone is going to write the same general studies paper, it's going to be the same essay, it's going to be the same interview. Only thing that differentiates you is going to be your optional. And optional is like, your do or die thing in this exam. So basically, there are two things. Either you choose your graduation subject or you choose something else, something new. It's like, for example, if they're professionals like, management graduates like you or doctors, they have a very basic understanding of the subject, like be it management or medicine. So their hold of the subject is going to be very strong. And you might have as well practiced if you worked or so on. So you will also have an field level understanding of the subject. So that is one. Or if you do not have if you do not have a subject of your graduation in the exam, for example, with me, I did my computer science engineering, and computer science as an optional is not there in UPSC. So I chose to go with arts. Like, and when I saw the subjects, like some subjects like history, geography, public administration, political science, sociology, psychology, these are the popular arts subjects. So how essentially can you go about with them is first your interest. You try to see some basic books of these optionals, like basic as in like basic NCRT level books or basic undergrad level books of these subjects, and have like, okay, is this a subject that you can spend a year with? Okay, you will need to know in depth about that subject. So how in depth can you go in that subject? That is one. So your interest level is your first criteria. Secondly, also explore the exposure or the resources that is available for that subject, the coaching facilities or the guidance materials. I mean, like how much is the help available? Like it's you can't do everything on your own. You need to outsource a bit. So if the coaching institutes are giving you that support, you can as well take them. So like what is the help that is available? For example, public administration as a subject has a lot of resources available, a lot of institutes that are there, a lot of coaching is available as such. And for in an anthropology also, like in places like Hyderabad, anthropology has a lot of resources. And so there are places also which have like particular resources and availability accordingly. So resource availability is your second criteria, and third criteria would be your scoring. Like how is the optional scoring? In UPSC as such, if you see, it's like sometimes an optional does well, sometimes it does not do well. So it would be better to like have an optional that consistently scores well. Like some optionals, like for instance, my own optional like public administration, sometimes it does really well, and sometimes the marks are pretty low. So but I had a very good interest in the subject, and so I went on with it. and also my resources were also very good with it. So what you should see is just these three factors: your interest, and secondly your resources, and third is your scoring. So if these three factors are in, then you can choose the option.
Fine. Thank you so much, Vandana, for taking out time. Can we have a huge round of applause for?
Thank you so much. All the very best to all of you.